Welcome back, everybody. We've got another deep dive ready to go, and you guys sent in a ton of articles on this one, so it looks like we're going to be focusing on how scientists are using the body's own immune system to go after multiple myeloma.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area, especially with immunotherapy becoming more and more prominent.
Okay, so, right, immunotherapy, I guess for people who haven't been following along with every episode we do,
hmm
um, multiple myeloma is a type of blood cancer that attacks these plasma cells, and they're pretty vital for a healthy immune system.
Right, it's like your body is turning against itself.
Exactly. And from what I understand, immunotherapy is kind of like helping the immune system fight back smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Instead of just blasting cancer cells with these really harsh drugs like chemo, we're figuring out ways to train the immune system to recognize and destroy those cells much more effectively. And one of the most interesting tools in this fight is something called a monoclonal antibody.
Right. Yeah, that was all over the articles that you sent.
Yeah.
And the star of the show here seems to be this one called Elotuzumab. But before we get into that, can you explain what a monoclonal antibody actually is? I mean, it sounds kind of like a sci-fi weapon.
Well, in a way, it kind of is. Think of it like a guided missile that's designed to target a very specific enemy.
Yeah.
Monoclonal antibodies are engineered proteins that can bind to certain targets on cells, and they're incredibly precise.
Okay, so in the case of Elotuzumab, what's the target?
Elotuzumab targets a protein called SLAMF7, and this is where it gets really interesting. SLAMF7 is found on both myeloma cells and natural killer cells, or NK cells.
Hold on. It targets both the bad guys and some of the good guys. How does that even work?
So it's actually a brilliant two-pronged attack, you see, on the one hand. By binding to SLAM-TLuso7 on the NK cells, elotuzumab activates those cells and boosts their ability to kill cancer cells. It's like giving them a power-up.
Oh, okay. So it's like supercharging the immune cells. But what about those myeloma cells?
Yeah. When elotuzumab binds to SLAM-F7 on those myeloma cells, it basically acts like a giant destroy me sign. It flags those cells for the immune system to attack.
Oh, so it's like marking the enemy for destruction.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever. And the articles mention that elotuzumab is often used in combination with other drugs. Why is that?
Well, you see, cancer cells are pretty crafty. They can develop resistance to a single treatment, but by hitting them from multiple angles, it makes it much harder for those cells to adapt. The articles you sent highlight how elotuzumab is often used with drugs like lenalidomide and pomalidomide.
Right. Those are...
Immunomodulatory drugs, they essentially work to enhance the immune system's response, so you create this powerful synergy with elotuzumab.
So it's like a coordinated attack plan,
Exactly.
hitting the cancer cells from all sides.
Now, while elotuzumab is remarkable, it's not the only player in this game. Your research also included a lot of information about other cutting-edge monoclonal antibodies, and what's fascinating is how they highlight the different strategic approaches, scientists are taking.
Yeah, there were a bunch of names. One that stuck out was tigatuzumab. What's its angle?
So tigatuzumab targets something called DR5, death receptor 5.
Death receptor. That sounds ominous.
It is for the cancer cells, at least. When tigatuzumab binds to DR5, it basically triggers a self-destruct mechanism within the cancer cell, so it bypasses the need for the immune system to even get involved.
Whoa, so it's like a direct hit, forcing the cancer cells to commit suicide. That's a very different approach from elotuzumab.
Exactly. It illustrates how researchers are exploring a diverse range of targets and mechanism. You also had some articles on bopralimab.
Right, and that one is all about.
Bopralimab focuses on activating ICOS, which is a protein found on certain immune cells called T cells, and this activation supercharges the T cell's ability to attack cancer.
So instead of directly targeting the cancer cells, it's about amping up the immune system even further. Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. It's like scientists are finding all these pressure points in the cancer's defenses, and each antibody exploits a different one.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, and this research is moving at an incredible pace. You even included some articles on biosimilars.
Yeah, and those are... Hold on, we need to define this for our listener. What exactly is a biosimilar?
Think of them as highly similar versions of existing biologic drugs like elotuzumab,
Okay.
They offer the same benefits in terms of safety and effectiveness, but here's the kicker. They're often much more affordable.
So like a generic version of a brand name drug.
Exactly. And this has huge implications, especially for research.
Because it means researchers can access these groundbreaking treatments more easily.
Right. They can conduct more experiments, explore new combinations, all without breaking the bank. One of your articles specifically mentions how elotuzumab biosimilars are helping researchers delve deeper into the mechanisms of SLAM-F7 targeting and explore new combination therapies.
That makes sense. It's like opening the doors to a whole new wave of research.
Precisely. And that brings us to the really exciting part.
Which is? It sounds like things are really opening up, with all these antibodies coming out and hitting cancer from all these different sides. And now these biosimilars are making everything more affordable and more accessible.
It really is a turning point, and these biosimilars aren't just about saving money, they're actually driving a whole new wave of research, particularly when it comes to personalized medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Personalized medicine, that's huge.
Yeah.
How do biosimilars play into that?
Well, think about it. To develop these really targeted treatments, you need to do a ton of research, right? You need to test all these different combinations of drugs. You need to test different dosages and see what works best for different genetic profiles. And that kind of research is really, really expensive if you're only using the original, the brand name biologics.
But with biosimilars.
Exactly. With biosimilars, researchers can actually run way more trials, they can test more hypotheses, and gather all this data that they need to actually create those personalized treatment plans.
Okay, so it's like taking the brakes off
Exactly.
of all this progress.
And it seems like biosimilars are also accelerating research into combination therapies.
Right.
Absolutely. We talked about how elotuzumab is often used in combination with other drugs. Well, imagine if you could test it with not just one or two other drugs, but dozens of them. Biosimilars make that kind of large-scale experimentation possible.
Okay, so let me just play this back to you and make sure I'm getting this. So let's say researchers have this idea that combining elotuzumab with, I don't know, some other experimental drug
Okay.
might be this killer combo.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this.
So instead of spending a fortune on the brand name versions of both drugs, they could use the biosimilar versions to run some initial trials, see if there's even a hint of a chance that it's going to work before moving on and actually using the expensive stuff.
You got biosimilars allow researchers to sort of play with different combinations, see what sticks without completely blowing their budget. And that's really crucial because sometimes the most unexpected pairings turn out to be the most effective ones.
This all sounds incredible, but I do have a question. Are there any concerns about using biosimilars? I mean, they're essentially copies, right? Are they really as effective as the original drugs?
That's a very valid question, and I want to emphasize that biosimilars aren't just cheap knockoffs. They have to undergo incredibly rigorous testing and meet the same strict standards of quality, safety, and effectiveness as their reference product.
So it's not like they're cutting corners to save money.
Absolutely not. The development and approval process for biosimilars is incredibly thorough. They have to prove that they are essentially interchangeable with the original biologic.
Okay, that's really reassuring. So it seems like these biosimilars are revolutionizing the field in more ways than one. They're not just making treatments more affordable, but they're actually driving progress and accelerating research.
They really are. And, the beauty of all this is that this is just the beginning. Researchers are constantly finding new targets, new pathways, all these new vulnerabilities and cancer cells.
What does that mean?
It means that we can expect even more exciting developments in this world of these cancer-fighting antibodies in the years to come. Think about it. We talked about elotuzumab, ticatuzumab, vopratelimab, each with its own unique mechanism. But there are so many more out there. Some are still in those really early stages of development.
Right, you mentioned a few others like brentuximab, gemtuzumab, atezolizumab.
Exactly. Each one is targeting a different protein, a different pathway that's involved in cancer development. And with the increased accessibility provided by biosimilars, we can expect that research to move even faster.
So it's like the immune system is becoming this vast arsenal, and scientists are figuring out how to wield each weapon with incredible precision, and that's not even taking into account the potential of personalized medicine and combination therapies.
You're absolutely right. It is a revolutionary time to be following this field.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about how immunotherapy is different from traditional chemotherapy, about how it's like teaching the immune system to fight smarter. But as we're going through all these antibodies and their targets and all this research that's being done, it's starting to feel like...
Like what?
Almost like we're hacking the code of cancer itself. We're learning its secrets, its vulnerabilities, and figuring out how to exploit them. It's both fascinating and incredibly empowering.
That's a very insightful observation. We are, in a sense, deciphering the language of cancer and using that knowledge to develop these increasingly sophisticated treatments.
And that's what makes all this research so exciting. It feels like we're on the verge of something truly groundbreaking.
I couldn't agree more now. Before we get too carried away with the future, let's take a step back and recap what we've learned so far. We started by diving into this world of monoclonal antibodies. these really targeted weapons that are transforming how we fight cancer.
We explored elotuzumab and its really clever dual targeting mechanism, how it activates the immune system while simultaneously marking those cancer cells for destruction.
We then branched out to other promising antibodies like ticatuzumab, which actually triggers a self-destruct sequence in cancer cells, and vopratelimab, which ramps up the immune response.
And of course, we can't forget about biosimilars, those game changers that are making all this cutting-edge research more accessible and more affordable. But what really strikes me is how all of this is connected. It's not just a bunch of individual discoveries.
It's a convergence of different fields, different approaches that are all coming together to create this incredible momentum in cancer research.
And that momentum is leading us towards a future where cancer treatment is more personalized, more targeted, and hopefully far less burdensome for patients.
That's a future worth fighting for, and I think one of the most important takeaways from all of this is
It seems like the biggest takeaway for me is that we're kind of shifting away from this idea of just trying to obliterate cancer cells to something that's a little bit more, I guess you could say, nuanced. We're understanding how they work and using that knowledge to outsmart them.
absolutely. And that's where immunotherapy really shines. Instead of just carpet bombing the body with chemo, we're actually developing these incredibly precise tools that can target specific vulnerabilities in those cancer cells.
Yeah, it's almost like we're learning to speak the language of cancer and then using that language to reprogram it.
I love that analogy. And with all these different antibodies and these biosimilars and this whole growing field of personalized medicine, we're building a whole new vocabulary.
And that vocabulary is giving us the power to write a new story when it comes to cancer treatment. One where it's not this terrifying life-altering diagnosis.
Right.
We talked about how immunotherapy has the potential to be less toxic than chemo and have fewer side effects. So what does that actually mean for the average person who's facing this disease?
It means that they have a better chance not only of surviving, but of thriving. Imagine a future where cancer treatment doesn't completely derail your life. Where you can still work, you can travel, spend time with loved ones, all while receiving effective treatment. That's the promise of immunotherapy.
And with biosimilars making these treatments more accessible, that promise becomes even more tangible.
Absolutely. It's no longer just a dream. It's becoming a reality for more and more people. And that brings me to one of the most exciting aspects of all this research. The sheer speed of innovation, just a few decades ago, this idea of using the body's own immune system to fight cancer seemed like science fiction.
I know, right? And now we're talking about biosimilars and personalized therapy and all these incredible breakthroughs, and they're happening at a pace that's almost hard to keep up with.
It really is remarkable, and what I find so fascinating is how this research is also opening up possibilities beyond just treating existing cancers. What if we could use these same tools to prevent cancer from developing in the first place?
Wait, are you talking about using immunotherapy as like a preventative measure?
Exactly. It's still early days, but researchers are already exploring the potential of using monoclonal antibodies and other immunotherapies to target precancerous cells or even boost the immune system's surveillance. It's like building a wall around the castle instead of just waiting for the enemy to attack.
That's incredible. It's like we're going from this reactive approach to a more proactive one, from fighting cancer to actually preventing it.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so inspiring. We're not just trying to treat a disease, we're trying to rewrite the future of human health.
So we covered a lot in this deep dive. We went from the basics of monoclonal antibodies to the intricacies of biosimilars to this mind-blowing potential of personalized medicine. What do you think is the most important takeaway for our listener?
I think the most important takeaway is that we are truly on the cusp of a revolution in how we treat cancer. That old paradigm of slash burn and poison is giving way to this much more sophisticated, targeted approach. And I think that should give us all reason to be hopeful, not just for those who are currently facing cancer, but for generations to come.
And that hope isn't just some vague sentiment. It's grounded in real, tangible progress. I mean, we're seeing breakthroughs all the time, and the pace of innovation is only accelerating. It's an incredible time to be alive, to actually witness this transformation in medicine.
I couldn't agree more. And, while there's still a lot of work to be done, the progress that we've made in just a few short decades is really nothing short of astonishing.
So to our listener, I say this: stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, never lose hope. The future of cancer treatment is brighter than ever before.
And as we continue to explore this incredible potential of the immune system, who knows what amazing discoveries await us, this is really just the beginning of a new era in medicine.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.